Right, and so for our other sponsor of the show, we have Wendy Prater at Magical Journeys Travel.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
The very beautiful looking Wendy Prater. Is she on your to-do list? Like if you meet her in real life, you're allowed to?
She's, when you open the wallet.
Yeah.
She's the picture in my wallet.
I get you. But other than our lust for Wendy, her and her Magical Journeys are there to help you plan your next Disney vacation. So whether that's a Disney cruise or a trip to Disney World, Wendy can help you by getting your reservations at midnight, getting those all-important Be Our Guest dining reservations or meet and greets with Anna and Elsa. And I think if you quote this podcast, Craig, get a bit of a discount on your deposit, don't you?
Yeah, $25 off, yeah.
There you go. So next time you want to book a holiday, give Wendy at Magical Journey Travels a little tinkle at wpmagicjourneys.com or on Twitter at wpmagicjourneys.
God bless Wendy and all that sail in it.
Warning. This show contains childish adult content and is intended for immature, mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. The views spoken are ours and ours alone, not those of any other bugger. If you're easily offended, we strongly suggest finding another podcast. Everybody neat and pretty, then on with the show.
Welcome to Pop After Dark, the pop culture podcast that's not the same as all the others.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Pop After Dark. I'm Nick, and as always joined by the Ming to my merciless Mr. Craig Lucas.
I thought you were going to say to the Ming to my Mong.
I was going to say to Mike, but that's a very obscure reference to a lot of people, so I didn't think I'd do that. And a rarity on Pop After Dark, we do have a special guest. I would say this person is clearly my favourite member of the Grim Grinning Gays.
Yes.
It's Travis!
I was going to say, there's not much competition to be
Travis,
fair.
the bearded mute.
You know, I actually need to one day check out the Grim Grinning Gays, because they're technically our competition. I mean,
It's me, Craig.
When you Google search Grim Grinning, it only comes up with three things: ghosts, hosts, and gays, which should be the name of an episode.
I think that should be your next episode. I think it should be. But for those that don't recognise the dulcet tones of our guest, who has actually been on Dis After Dark before, would you like to tell the audience who you actually are, not being Travis?
Buck Lightning, a.k.a. Adam Santino, or if I guess to our English friends here, Adam Sultana. Is that what y'all are calling me?
That is exactly. Let's say you pronounce your name in England.
Sultana, but
Yeah.
You can say Sultana if you want.
Let's call the whole thing off.
It doesn't really bother me. It's a stage name anyway, so.
Do you know what a Sultana is, by the way?
A Latin singer?
No, well, kind of. No, actually, a Sultana is is it a white grape raisin?
No, well, it's a dried out grape, yeah.
It's a raisin, but it's not the same as. It's not made using the same grapes as a raisin.
It's shriveled up, but it's still juicy, and that's how I see it. So
Sounds like my nutsack.
It's going to be one of those kind of shows, guys. That's what kind of happens when we get together.
Well, since I'm on this show, and y'all didn't do it when I was on Dis After Dark, y'all used to, or y'all still do occasionally ask, "What are you drinking?"
Oh yeah, I'm drinking, lad.
I don't drink alcohol, but since I'm on the After Dark Network, I did put together my favorite concoction, which I call Ghetto Mosas.
Ghetto Moses.
No, Ghetto Mosa.
Oh, Ghetto Mosa.
Sperm of a horse.
No, that's my night cream. No, this is No, it's the ghetto version of a mimosa, so it's just Sprite and orange juice.
Do you actually wee sitting down as well?
I do.
I mean, depending on the time of night, sure.
Yeah.
I'm that hard. I poo standing up, but whatever.
You'll love China. I don't mean the party's female wrestler. Anyway, we're not going to play a game of wrestling. Are they alive or dead? Because we've done that. But this is Pop After Dark. So this is the kind of more irrelevant show in the After Dark Podcast Network. A lot of people would probably argue that all the shows are irrelevant, but this one even more so.
I'm drinking Old Putney, 12-year-old single malt. So, in your face.
I've just finished my second beer, and I really don't think it'd be wise for me to open another one.
Open another one.
We'll see what happens about him first.
I assumed Old Putney was the name of your neighbour.
He's dead, me neighbour, so...
Oh, is that why his house is up for sale?
I'm wearing his skin.
Craig is trying to get me to move up to Liverpool.
Oh, that would be boss. Having a little cockney just living next door to me.
Hello, Governor.
Just stick drilling glory holes into the walls.
If you've got enough termites, you don't need the drill.
He's amazing. Like, if I sold my house and moved up to where Craig, in Craig Street, I'd be able to buy a house almost outright and have a lot of money left over.
I know y'all did one live episode. How often have y'all ever tried to record in the same room?
Oh, never. That was a very, very early episode of Dis After Dark. I think it was like 4 or 5. I think that was the first time we met you, Craig, actually.
Was that in Mouse Meets?
Yeah, it was a Mouse Meets. The shittiest Disney festival known to man.
The DisneyBrit Retirement Fund.
or that. So they didn't like us very much, so they said, oh yeah, you can record a show, and then did something at the same time as no one came along. But
it was a fringe thing. It's a fringe thing. But no, I mean, me and Craig have seen each other a couple of times because Craig travels into London for work, where I work as well. So we've met up a few times. But we met Mr. D at the same Mouse Meetings event. I've met Mr. Dolan and my work as well. He lives in a hotel in Chester now.
Yeah. You met him a few weeks ago. But as far as we are aware, P-Dubs and Chris Ripley don't actually exist. They're just robotic voices conducted on someone's computer. We don't know if they're actually real people because we've never met them.
Is that true, or are you just trying to emphasize Ripley's rep since he's on that HHN and all that?
He's a man with a lot of fingers and a lot of pies.
It is that kind of show, isn't it? No, I'm only asking because I haven't gotten to do it too often because one of the Metal Hand of God members lives. He moved. He was in Savannah, Georgia, and now he's in North Carolina, and so it's very rare. Well, I guess that's not true because now we have a third member or a fourth member that. So yeah, occasionally we get to record in the same room these days, but I don't know. It's just y'all ought to try like doing some sort of meetup at some point because it really is nice to just sit all in the same room, not worry about Skype, just turn on your recorder and actually be able to look and talk to the person that you're interacting with.
Well, it's actually we're really lazy when you think about it because I don't know how far Charlotte is to where you are in terms of distance, but obviously England's a much smaller country than America is. So really,
is Craig, it though?
Yeah,
is it?
Yeah, no, it is. Craig, how far away are you from London?
Exactly 200 miles.
Right. I am about 30 miles from London. And when Mr. D lives locally, and not in a hotel for work, him and Chris Ripley aren't a million miles away from each other either. So, actually, it's not really within the realms of possibility for us to do it. We just haven't. And we have actually talked about it.
And I think even the founder of Dis After Dark tried to arrange something last summer for us, and we just never got around to doing it. But
God rest his soul.
He's still stuck in a toilet, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's something that we have talked about doing. To be honest, I think it's the logistics more than anything else, because if we could get a small room together, hire out a hall or something, and just for some people to come down and watch, we'd probably do it. But it's hard trying to get something arranged like that and get people.
We could just do it, though, couldn't we? We could just go on the piss in London and just do it.
That is true.
Just walk around with an iPhone in our hand and just do it, can't we?
If we get enough money from the Patreon, we can buy ourselves a Blue Yeti, and then that'll solve a lot of the problems. So
I do recommend it. It's interesting, and you mentioned that y'all have met individually. Different groups of you have met off and on, but I think it definitely changes things when because like I said, one of our members is from a different part of the country, so I don't know how to explain it, but I guess as much as your camaraderie is great, like having this relationship through a podcast on Skype, like it's nice to actually look in the eyes of someone that you've known for so long but don't actually get to see. I think it adds to a show.
Oh no, I think you're spot on, and I think what is quite amazing to me is I listen to quite a few podcasts. Craig listens to an awful lot of podcasts, and one thing that I think I like to think people agree with is that we do all seem to have a good rapport, despite the fact that we don't do that. But at the same time, that's not to kind of question what you just said, because I completely agree with what you're saying. But there are podcasts that I've listened to, and I know Craig has listened to as well, where it's a group of people, and it just sounds like a group of people that don't really know each other, don't really care, just there to kind of make up numbers. And I think there's a big difference.
That way.
I've said worse. Sway hates me.
When you've just had a meet-up, haven't you, at Grim Grin and Gaze in Orlando?
In Universal, yeah.
How was that?
It was definitely a good experience. It was kind of odd for me because, I know Kenny and Travis have met, and Travis and Hunter have met. I don't think Kenny and
Travis and Hunter are lovers, aren't they?
Travis doesn't love anyone. He's got that evil beard. He'll fuck you, but he won't hug you.
It's like I live in a cave beard, isn't it?
It's actually a giant bee's nest.
Yeah.
It's really thick. That's why you can't see anything. But yeah, no, I'd never met any of them. I knew Hunter mostly through UOP, and and he and I have communicated because I'm a well-known comic book aficionado, and I work in a comic shop and all that, and he enjoys comic books. And but I'd actually never even spoken to Travis or Kenny until the pilot episode of Grim Grinning Host. So, but it was I actually went to Orlando specifically to get the chance to meet everyone because, Kenny lives in Chicago, I live in New Orleans, Hunter lives about 80 miles. I'm not sure in which direction away from Orlando. So, to get us all in the same room for 5 minutes, which is about how much time we had, it's difficult.
But again, I mean, I remember listening to, because you put out the original pilot of GGH as kind of like a beta, and it kind of passed around a little bit through our little community at least. And the one thing that I didn't get from that pilot episode is that was the first time we got together. I don't know if you referenced it or not, but it what I mean by that is it didn't come across that was the first time you'd spoken to these people. It felt like you had previous with them.
Well, I'm the only one that didn't. I mean, I think that they had met each other individually, but I don't know. I think they had also like communicated online. But of the three of them, the only one that I ever had any communication with, or even like literally knew that they existed as a person, was Hunter. So I was probably the biggest fish out of water, because I mean, also, you know, Kenny and Travis and Hunter are all part of the theme park community, and as are y'all. I'm not, as I mentioned many times. I don't know who any of these people are. Whenever Travis is like, "Yeah, I was out with the trackers," I'm like, I mean, hunting deer? What?
Well, in the UK, that's a chocolate bar, so you know that's even more confusing. Yeah.
Deer or trackers?
Trackers.
Trackers, yeah.
I eat deer chocolate.
But no, I know you mean, because I mean, the thing is, I mean, although we've been doing this, I mean, Craig, how long have you been with Dad now? What, about 3-4 years, maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
You've been there quite a long time. Dolan obviously was there in the first year, and I've been there since day one. But I don't always actually see myself as part of the theme park community. Even though, you know, I've gone to Disneyland Paris, you know, quite a lot of times, and I've gone to Orlando and stuff like that. I don't even now see myself really as kind of fitting in that community in the same way that I would say people like Hunter do, for example. And yet we kind of do the same thing, but I think there's a different. I think if you live near a theme park and you go to one more regularly than most people, I think that probably gets you that kind of pass into being part of the community.
But do y'all know more of these people? Because like, and I'm not even trying to be insulting to them. I just, whenever so Travis, whether you know it or not, is the most connected person of Grim Grinning Hosts. Like he knows everyone. Like y'all mentioned, you know, the big Adam the Woo controversy a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like Travis knows all these people. Like he communicates with them privately. So, and hangs out with them. So
he's like a little sinister cousin It, isn't he? Like in the background of Adam the Woo's vlogs, you just see this little fella in the background with this big weird pube beard.
Yeah.
and then strangely you're watching the trackers, and you just see this little imp in the background with all shit in his beard, and just like he's been sleeping under a bush, just following the trackers like a little bearded zombie.
That's just jealousy speaking. Don't be so mean to Travis with his dingy beard.
And then he comes on your show and basically says 3 words and then gets off.
No. We all get off. It's no, he knows everyone, you know, and it's just weird, like how connected he is. But like I said, I don't even know these people, you know, like y'all. I know y'all are fans of Adam the Woo. I literally never heard that person's name until I think actually I heard about it on your show. Actually, I think I heard about it on Dis After Dark. But you know, I don't know who any of these people are.
I'm with you, Adam. I don't, you know, Craig watches a lot of vloggers and stuff like that, but to me, I wouldn't know these people from Adam the Woo. Yeah, I mean, it's just never been my thing. But I think, you know, people that love vloggers, and, you know, Craig, you've got quite a few that you follow and watch quite regularly. I think that kind of becomes a bit of an obsession, not in a bad way or a creepy way, but you just kind of get, you know, you get into one and then you find someone else you like, and you kind of, you know, go down all these kind of rabbit holes. But yeah, to me, I don't really get it myself.
The thing about the YouTube vloggers is that it's a little more digestible than podcasts. Like I mean, most podcasts, I guess it depends on the genre, but usually about an average of an hour, you know, anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour and a half is the average podcast. Whereas with YouTubers, especially like entertainment-based ones, usually 30 minutes is about the most you get out of these guys. So, you know, it's a little easier to turn it on while you're doing something and
See, I disagree. I mean, you're right in what you say, but to me, like, I can put on a podcast and I can listen to it, and I might zone out a little bit every now and again, even to my own ones if I listen back to them. But I can hear them whilst I'm doing something else. Whilst if I'm watching a YouTube video, although it's obviously an audio experience as well as a visual one, because it's a visual medium, I feel that if I'm not giving it my full attention, I'm not actually getting anything out of it. So I have to really pick a time when I can actually put something on to watch. I can't just put it on in the background and start doing something else.
We watch the vlogs when the kids have gone to bed or when the kids are playing or whatever, and we only really watch the Will and Tim Tracker, Happy Living. We watch Happy Living.
And that Florida guy.
That Florida guy, the little bearded buffoon from Newcastle.
Why are you like pets?
Why are you wee canny bastard?
Is that your nightly ritual? Y'all snuggle up and, listen to the deep, soothing voice of Gary.
Yeah.
There's nothing soothing about that voice. It's like the Malaby voice, just grates.
So, but you can do that as a couple watching the telly, where you don't tend to listen to podcasts as a couple. That's a private thing almost, because you've got headphones on. We do have podcasts on in the kitchen on the Sonos, but you're not really listening to them. They're just in the background when I'm cooking, whatever, when I'm dancing. You've seen when I cook.
Oh, yeah.
Or cook.
Hot.
It is very hot normally.
Just in my pants.
That is true. But sometimes I listen to podcasts in the car as well.
But I think vlogging is the new podcasting. I know some of them have been going for 5 years and all that, but I think it's with the YouTube's on basically every smart television now, and obviously every smartphone.
Yeah, but you got to consider that technically YouTubing is, the original podcasting on some level. I think they came out around the same time as a mainstream medium, but YouTube's much bigger. But they're also adding more avenues for you to listen to podcasts now, like Spotify supposedly has podcasts, although they've made it very hard for, regular people to get their show on. I'm not sure why, but it's very hard to get your podcast added to the Spotify RRS or RSS. But they're adding more places, and now they're adding technology into cars so that there's an actual podcast app. If you have a newer, like, teched up car. So it's just a matter of time before, and also I think because YouTube's so ubiquitous, the average person knows what it is, whereas podcasts, there's still plenty of people who don't know what it is.
Yeah.
No,
but I work for a train company in Great Britain. Nobody in there, apart from maybe 3 people, know that I podcast.
Yeah.
Or even know what a podcast is.
I was going to say, like, if I said to somebody a podcast, it's two kinds of things. Somebody who goes, oh yeah, I know what a podcast is, or somebody who's like, oh, what the hell's a podcast? And you go, essentially, it's a radio show that you can listen to at any time. Like, oh, right, okay. And I think the name confuses people because, really, when you think about it, what is a podcast? What does it mean? It's a bit of an odd thing. If you know what it is, you just accept it for what it is. You don't question why it's called that, and I've never questioned it. But
most people don't even use iPods anymore. If you have an Apple product, it's usually an iPhone. But and then a lot of people have whatever Samsungs or some other Android device. So the term podcast is somewhat antiquated because it's sort of outlived the technology that. But and podcasts sort of existed before iPods, but it first started getting called that. After the iPod.
I would argue, having my first iPod is how I got into podcasts. I think it was just the right time. I got my first one about 2004, 2005, and a few of the big radio stations in this country would then start to do highlights of radio shows. So that was the first way I got introduced to podcasts, and then Ricky Gervais, I think, was probably the first big celebrity to take that on. because that's how he started out. He started out on local radio in London, and because it was local radio in London, they had to find a way of getting that out across the country because he was getting popular with The Office, and so that's when he started to release those podcasts. So
I discovered podcasts with them. I mean, I know Steve Purcell from our place will be now sitting in a bush in a park in London, vigorously masturbating
around the Euston Square area, I'd imagine,
to this podcast, listening to us. We will literally be coming in his ears right now. Won't we, Steve Purcell?
He's just stopped. He's just stopped everything he's doing in those bushes. So, whilst we could probably talk about podcasts and everything like that all night, let's kind of go off a little bit, because me and Adam saw a film last week. I've seen quite a lot of films recently because, as I mentioned on Dis After Dark, I've recently bought a membership card to my local cinema. Now, I don't think any chains, and please correct me, Adam, but I don't think there's any chains in America at the moment that do like an unlimited card.
What do you mean by an unlimited card? So like unlimited chances to see a movie?
Yeah, so I basically pay a fee a month, and that allows me to go and see any film I want, anytime, however many times I want to see it.
I can't speak for the entire country, but locally, definitely not. I mean, it's an interesting concept, but I wonder if it has to do with. Well, you said you live pretty near to London, so that should be a pretty densely populated city.
No, it's across the chains. The Odeon does it in Liverpool, about £17 a month, something like that.
Yeah, we've got three big chains in the country, and two of them, Cineworld is the one that I've got a card for, and Craig mentioned Odeon, which is probably the oldest. Both now do these passes.
Yeah, we've got the Showcase as well, just half a mile away. That does it.
Yeah. Oh, did I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
I don't know why we wouldn't have something like that. You know, we're pretty good at stealing when y'all have a good idea.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, so I pay. I got mine at reduced rate because I got a discount through my workplace. But basically, if I see one film a month, I've made my money back. So, you know, I just use this as an opportunity to go and see a load of films that not that I wouldn't have seen, because I would have wanted to see them. But when you're paying. I mean, I don't know how much a ticket is in America now, but in the UK, on a weekend, you're probably paying somewhere around 10 to 20 quid for a ticket, depending on if it's a regular showing or IMAX.
That was my question. How does that, if y'all pay an advance fee for the month, like how does it go up if you want to see like 3D movies, or is there like different tier package?
Yeah. So my pass, at least, I can't speak for Odeon, but I know how my pass works. For the first 12 months, if you want to go and see a 3D film or one on one of their super screens, they call them, you have to pay I think it's an upcharge of about £1.50 to go and see a 3D film. If you want to go and see IMAX, we've got an IMAX at my local cinema, but it's what I refer to as a IMAX screen. So it's a bigger screen with better sound, but it's not a full-on IMAX experience. That's, I think, about £5 on top. So you just pay. So instead of costing you £15, you basically pay a £5 towards it. So you know, if it's a good enough film, if it's a big enough film, like I'm going to pay that to go and see Guardians. But I wouldn't go and see every IMAX film like that, because I'll just go and see it on a regular screen. But after the first year, your 3D films then become free. So the only films you have to pay extra for are IMAX. So yeah, so it's pretty good system, I think. But yeah, so I'm going to run through some films that I've seen recently. So I know at least one that we've seen together, so we'll discuss that. But did you manage to see Kong?
I'm not a kaiju person, like all that. I mean, I'll probably see when they do the Kong versus Godzilla movie, just because it sounds like fun. But none of that, you know, I didn't see Godzilla when it came out a couple years ago. Like, none of that really interests me.
See, I'm not. I remember those original films because I've always been obsessed with King Kong. Like, one of the films that I fell in love with as a child was the. Well, actually, the film I fell in love with was King Kong Lives.
Fucking hell.
Which is terrible. But I was like 6, I didn't know any better. But soon after that, I watched the original 1933 King Kong, and I've always loved that kind of film. It's not really the Godzilla destroying cities and everything like that. More the story of King Kong. And Kong Skull Island is. I've actually not seen Godzilla, so I can't speak too much about how it compares in terms of that. But it felt quite traditional in how they did it. It was set on an island. He fought kind of big creatures on the island, I suppose, and was trying to fight back against the army that was trying to kill him. But I wouldn't say it was the same kind of... I can't even pronounce it, but the Kaiju? Kaiju. I wouldn't say it's that genre of film. But obviously that's what they're going to lead up towards the new one.
When I use the term kaiju, technically speaking, Kong isn't considered one of those. But, I mean, if you just sort of lay it out as big monsters, and the fact that they're crossing it over with Godzilla, I just made more sense to
the thing is, they did that before. I mean, I remember the original kaiju version of Kong and Godzilla, or Mecha Kong and Godzilla, that they did in the 60s and 70s in Japan. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's already happened. This is just a modern take of that type of film. But
I was talking with a friend about that, I guess 2 nights ago, and we were saying, like, how long is it going to be? Because you have all these studios that, ever since Marvel, created, like, the cinematic universe concept, or at least ran with it. I don't know if they created it, but now all these studios are trying to make a cinematic universe. And I'm like, well, how long is it going to be before you get Godzilla, King Kong, Mechagodzilla, and I don't know, Mothra as a monster superhero team fighting aliens?
I don't think anyone will care.
That'll be the 5th film in the franchise.
I just can't. I can't see people caring enough. It doesn't seem like, as racist as it will probably sound, it's not an American enough an idea. That's a very Japanese thing. And it's been done before, but I don't think America cares enough to make it work. Saying that, I mean, obviously, global box office now is more key to a film's success than it's ever been. Before, if a film wasn't a success in America, no matter what it did outside of America, it was seen as a failure. Whilst now, films are kind of being geared more towards a global audience. I unfortunately watched Now You See Me 2 the other day. Now, I quite like the first Now You See Me film.
I was in that movie.
Huh?
I was in that movie. You can't see me, but I was, ironically or appropriately, I was in the original Now You See Me.
No way.
Yeah, I almost killed Jesse Eisenberg.
Well, you wish you had. Then he wouldn't have been in that Superman Batman piece of shit that he was in a few years later. But the thing is, for what it was, I thought it was an entertaining popcorn flick. It wasn't too serious. The sequel I thought was terrible, but you could tell. I mean, it was you saw in the opening credits, it was like co-produced with like the Chinese film company or something. But they shoehorned, being set in China, having some Chinese people added to the cast, and then there was rumours they were going to spin that off with a Chinese equivalent to spin off from the main film series. So, this is happening kind of more and more now, I think. But it's the way that they do it is the problem, because if they make it too obvious, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, don't go and see the second one. It's not very good at all. So you didn't see Kong. The next one I saw, you wouldn't have seen yet either, because it comes out in America, I think, next Friday.
What did you rate Kong out of a POP 100?
I wrote a list, actually, and I then deleted it by accident. I think I gave Kong an 87.
That's high praise indeed.
Yeah, I liked... Because the thing about Kong as well is it's set in the 70s. So it's
everything's boss in the 70s.
It's a bit of a period film as well. The human cast if you look at the whole human cast, are pretty ropey. Other than John C. Reilly, who is amazing in everything, his character was great, but everyone else is a little bit wooden.
Have you all got afros and big sideys?
No. The hair, it's more the fashion, I suppose, and the music choices. But yeah, it's a good fun film anyway. I definitely recommend it.
It's got a Vietnam feel about it.
Yeah, that's it. It's set just after the Vietnam War.
Okay.
That's kind of one of the underlying things about it, actually. But sticking in the 70s, I saw a film that comes out this week in America or next week called Free Fire, which is...
is that Free Fire or Cockney for three fire?
No, as in F-R-E-E.
So people are giving fire away for free?
Correct.
There's not 3 fires?
That's right. And that, again, is a 70s... it's a 70s kind of drama, comedy type thing. It's basically a Mexican standoff for an hour and a half, all set in this warehouse where a gun deal goes bad. And there's a few famous people in it. It's quite a low-budget film, and it was executive produced by Martin Scorsese as well. But
what it sounds like is you've watched all the good films and you're just trying to get value for money for your passing out and watching shite.
No, because it was a British film, and I like to support British films.
Okay, because I've never heard of that. Like, I don't know, they might be advertising it more heavily in there, especially if you're saying it's low budget.
Yeah,
and odds are their advertising budget's probably a little smaller, and maybe they're trying to focus It's an
A24 release.
Is it like free Nelson Mandela?
Yeah, no, it's about Nelson Mandela and about apartheid.
Is he on fire?
He only at the beginning of the film, but they put it out quite quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's an A24 release, Adam. So it's going to be quite an art house kind of release.
Yeah. I'll be seeing Pirates that weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those films that I was going to wait for it to come out on Netflix or something, but because
on Android.
No, not on Android. I would have probably watched it with something I paid for. But
you know, it's a good film, right? When it's got a popcorn bucket. Has it got a popcorn bucket?
Has it got a popcorn bucket? Where?
Well, has it got it? When you walked into your local cinema?
No, it was all bloody Smurfs.
Well, exactly. So it's freaking shite.
Yeah, we're saying that, but the Boss Baby was good, and that didn't have any popcorn stuff.
You know, I saw the advertisements for that. I wasn't even aware that came out here.
Yeah, it came out the same day, actually. I knew, like, it's coming... You know, I remember, like, when me and Craig were little nippers, we'd have to wait months to see a film after it came out in America. Now, we're getting them either a few weeks before or often the same day. So, that was, again, it was only a film that I saw because of my past, because I wanted to take my daughter to see it.
I thought you were going to say because you used to be a boss baby.
No, I wasn't a boss baby. We learned that on the radio last night. But that was just me taking my daughter out for the day, and she loved it. I actually quite enjoyed it, but I always find with the DreamWorks kind of releases that they don't have that same quality of story that a Pixar film would do.
Oh, this was a DreamWorks movie?
Yeah.
Okay, quick question, and it's obvious what the answer is.
It's Shrek in it.
How many jokes did it feature where someone shit themselves and like?
There was a one of my daughter's highlights was when the boss baby of the film spat his food out at the older brother. That made her laugh quite a lot. And the bit that I liked was when he was getting touts on his naked bottom and he farted and made a little talcum powder cloud.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that is if you go through the majority of the DreamWorks library of animated films, almost every one of them has a joke where someone shits themselves. Like if it's a rabbit, he'll shit like Easter eggs or something like that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I watched Hop the other day and he did exactly that. Yeah, jelly beans.
I was watching, they had, Kung Fu Panda 3 on Netflix, and I had no interest in it. It's not very well written, but I mostly was watching it because the animation was absolutely amazing. Like even in like I'm just sitting there all of a sudden like someone like it wasn't like actual shit. It was like something impression that the one of the animals shit themselves, and I was just like, God damn it! Almost every single movie they do, like there's a crapping yourself joke. Like,
no,
is it that funny?
Yeah, that is. You're right, and it seems to be like bodily fluid jokes seem to be a common theme in DreamWorks films. You're right.
Yeah. There's that scene where Shrek shoots his load all over.
You dirty bastard. But I mean,
he was doing soggy biscuit on the gingerbread man.
Don't Google soggy biscuits. Anyone listens to this podcast. To be fair, for a DreamWorks film, I also had to watch Trolls the other day because my daughter loves Trolls at the moment. But for a DreamWorks film, it actually had quite a highbrow concept for a story, and it was certainly one of their better films, I think, in general. It was no How to Train a Dragon, which we all agree is the high bar of DreamWorks films, but it was certainly a step above a lot of their...
How to Train a Dragon just bores me to tears.
Shut up, Craig.
Please tell me you're joking.
I've seen half of it, and it was shit.
Oh my God.
I'm sick of people. I had this last night with the person I was speaking to, and I mentioned...
54 out of 100.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and he said, I didn't like the first one, I turned it off after half an hour. After half an hour, you don't get any idea what the whole film is.
Oh, I remember that conversation.
I actually had a conversation with my best friend. I was talking to his brother, and he was talking about the Marvel movies he hasn't seen. And he's like, yeah, I still haven't seen Guardians. I was like, oh, really? I was like, that's easily one of the best films they've done.
Yeah.
And my best friend was like, don't listen to him. It was terrible. I was like, dude, you're the only person I've ever met that's seen that movie that doesn't think it's amazing.
I've seen it like 6 times.
Oh, my wife, she wouldn't go to the cinema. She wouldn't go to the cinema and see it. And then I said to her, look, I think you'd really like it. And when it came out, we bought it. And after she watched it the first time, she got obsessed with it. Like, she'll watch it again? No. Like, every weekend, she'll watch it again. She just loves Guardians.
Guardians is my benchmark film for, I try to explain to people when, like, if you told me when I was a kid, one day you're going to get a Spider-Man movie and an X-Men movie, and they'll be amazing, I would have said, it'll never happen. Like, I don't know, like, you're nuts. And then, in the early 2000s, that happened. And then my next benchmark was something like Avengers, Like, when I heard, like, they were making Avengers, I was like, this sounds cool, but they're not going to pull it off. And they pulled it off, and it was amazing. And then they announced that they were making Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm quite a big fan of that comic. And I actually told people on the air, like we were discussing, and I said, look, I'm a huge Guardians fan, but I don't see this finding an audience because, like, this is a weird-ass comic. Like, I couldn't actually explain the comic book to you. And then James Gunn, all credit to him, like, miraculously like pulled it off. I mean, granted, it's very, very different than the comic book, and every character except for Rocket is completely changed, but totally pulled it off. And so, like, after that, I'm kind of at the point where, like, after Guardians, I can say they have a shot at pulling off anything now. Like, if they can make people love Guardians of the Galaxy, okay, Infinity War or whatever, any number of films, like, I'm willing to believe anything at this point.
I remember when they first announced Guardians, it was around about the same time they announced Big Hero 6, and I was reading the story to my wife in the car, and I said, like, this is the next Disney film, and this is the next Marvel film. I said, I don't think either of them are going to work. This film's got a talking tree, for fuck's sake. Do you know what I mean? Like, neither of those films sound like they were going to work on paper, and both films, I think, are fantastic. But I left Guardians of the Galaxy, I've seen it at cinema, and I said to my mate, that is the Star Wars for this generation of kids. Of course, then Force Awakens came out. But do you know what I mean? Like that could have been their Star Wars.
I think
Definitely.
I think actually Guardians is closer to this generation Star. Well, I guess we'll see in the long run, but I mean the Force Awakens.
Guardians is not going to make $2 billion. It's going to make a lot of money, but it's not going to do Star Wars numbers.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, as much as I like The Force Awakens, it's just a retread. Like it's hard to say The Force Awakens is the Star Wars for this generation because, you have parents who grew up with Star Wars who are taking their kids and showing them the original movies and all that. So I don't know. I'm just saying, as far as original properties, I think Guardians is, I don't know, maybe up there.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I'm with you. I think it's a great franchise. Cannot wait for this new one. Now I'm going to name another film that I saw and hope that you've seen this one. Did you get to see Ghost in the Shell?
I actually avoided that one.
Was that Ghost in Michelle or Ghost in the Shell?
Yeah, not Ghost in Michelle. That's a different film. Yeah.
Okay.
But
your Cockney, it gets worse when you've had a drink.
It gets worse when it gets this late at night as well. The thing is, like, I was a good audience for Ghost in the Shell because I'd never seen the manga all the way through, or the anime, to give it its correct name. I'd seen bits and pieces, and obviously was aware that The Matrix had kind of taken quite a lot of influence from it as well. But
among other things.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Okay. But I wasn't really. I didn't have any kind of relationship with the original, so I was able to look at it just as a film in itself. I really enjoyed it, actually. I know the controversy with it, without giving away spoilers, that's kind of addressed in the film as well. But I thought for what it was a much better film than it should have been, and its performance has been a bit disappointing. Considering
what's the controversy?
Well,
whitewashing.
Yeah, Ghost in the Shell is an anime, and I haven't seen it forever. I barely remember it because it wasn't that memorable, at least to me. But I'm a big advocate of, like, I hate the diversity thing, and I don't want the whitewashing thing either. I don't need Iron Fist to be Asian, which, by the way, is a super racist thing to argue. And I don't want, an Asian character to be whitewashed and make her white. And I get the argument that, how is this movie going to make money with an Asian actress that no one knows? Well, if it's a good movie and it looks good, like people will see it. I don't know. I didn't just avoid it because of the Scarlett Johansson thing. I also, like I said, I had seen it as a kid, and I don't know. I just don't remember it being that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot more, from what I've read afterwards, it's a lot more action-packed than the original film was. They've obviously kind of given it that Hollywood touch. You know what? Spoilers, I don't care, because you haven't seen it by now, you're not going to see it.
It's 30-year-old or 25-year-old franchise.
I'm talking about the new film, but the whole thing is that Scarlett Johansson's character was actually a Japanese girl.
Because it's an android body.
Yeah, sorry.
Because it's an android body or a robot body.
Yeah, exactly. So
I understood how they were going to justify it. That's pretty obvious because it's not. What's her name? The sergeant.
Yeah, sergeant major or something.
Yeah, she. The body you see her in the anime wasn't her original body, as I recall.
Right.
I get it. I just think. I mean, that's not why they did it. They did it because they thought it was funny, but. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm not hating on it. Like, I haven't seen it. You say it's good. Maybe one day, if it's on Netflix, I'll check it out. But, I don't get to the theater as much as I'd like, and we don't have I wonder if I'd be more incentivized. Do y'all feel that way? Like you're more incentivized to go to the theater more often if you buy these packages?
Well, I mean, I bought the package at the time because I was having some time off work. I had some holiday coming up. So I thought it was a good way to do so. And also, as I mentioned to Craig, because of my children going to school where we used to live, we moved out about a year or so ago. So 2 or 3 nights a week, I'm alone. Or if I'm not seeing friends, I'll just be here alone. So it means that if I've got a loose end, it's like, well, I'm going to see something at the cinema now. Which I probably wouldn't have done if it was going to cost me 12 or 14 quid a pop. But because I've already paid a monthly fee, then, yeah, why don't I go and see something? I was going to go and see Power Rangers the other day, not because I wanted to see it, but because my friend wouldn't go and see it on his own. But again, if I was having to pay for that, I probably would have told him where to go. But as it was going to cost me nothing, I didn't mind. But I didn't see Power Rangers.
Why didn't he want to go on his own? Because it's like a bit scary.
Yeah, it's a 12A. No, he just doesn't like the idea. He wouldn't go and see a film on his own. Not because it's scary. He just didn't feel comfortable doing it. I've been watching films by myself for years. I normally would go with the wife, to be fair, but if she's not available, she doesn't want to go and see a film, it won't stop me going to see something I want to go and see.
I went to see Revenge of the Sith on my own, but that wasn't through choice. But
that's because it was rubbish. No, actually, that was probably the best of those.
It was the best. I loved them 3 films.
They're terrible. They're terrible, Craig. So, one film that I know that me and Adam had both gone and seen is the film
One in the Pink, One in the Stink.
That's the Aerosmith attraction.
First of all, it's 2 in the Pink.
2 in the Pink, 1 in the Stink, yeah.
Because I'm classy.
Okay.
So, Adam saw a film called The Fate of the Furious. I saw a film called Fast and Furious 8.
Better title.
I don't... well, I can see why I've done it, because F8 is fate, isn't it?
Yeah, I figured that out.
Pun.
The problem with that is, I know, so they're ending it with 10. And when I realized it was F8 and the Furious, I was like, oh God, the last one's going to be called FAS 10 : the Furious. That's what it's going to be called.
I don't know what
it's called, but it's going to be called Fast and the Furious.
You heard it here on this podcast first. Now, Adam, I don't know about you, but the Fast and Furious franchise is such a guilty pleasure of mine. I watched the first one and thought it was okay. The second one looked terrible, and everyone I know that saw it said it was rubbish, so I avoided that. And Tokyo Drift didn't even star Vin Diesel, so I thought, well, that's going to be rubbish. I know he appeared at the end. So when the Fast and Furious came out, why they called it that, I don't know. That trailer kind of got me interested, so I wanted to go and see that. And thought that was pretty good way of rebooting the franchise, but let's be honest, when you put The Rock in a franchise of films, that's when shit gets good.
Yeah, well, I mean, The Rock's part of it, but I think of the Fast and Furious movies like a baby deer, like a little Bambi being born. Like the first 4 movies are its first 4 steps. And then by the time it gets to step 5, like it's at a run. But like the first movie it's entertaining schlock. You know, like it's a fun movie. Like if you know anything about cars, you're like, this is bullshit. You know. I
know nothing about cars and know it's bullshit.
Okay. Yeah, it's absolute bullshit. The second one it's actually kind of a better movie, except for the car stuff is even more ridiculous, and for some reason Paul Walker is ghetto in it. Like all of a sudden he's talking with like he's been hanging out, you know, in black areas for a while, like, you know, like, what's up, cuz? It's so awkward. It's so awkward watching.
He becomes Poochie.
Huh?
He becomes Poochie.
Yeah, kind of. But Poochie was more like California, and this is more like South Central. But and then the third movie, actually, I've never seen Tokyo Drift, but I've been told it's actually, like, of the first 4 movies, it's actually supposedly the best.
I've never watched it all the way through, but I've watched it in multiple like settings where it's just been on in the background. But yeah,
I've seen
pretty good
like that. And then the fourth one, like they were like, all right, none of this is working. Well, why don't we reinvent it as like a serious action movie? And that was interesting, but it didn't really work. And then by the time they got to the fifth one, they were just like, look, these movies are stupid. Let's just make them as amazingly stupid as possible.
Yeah.
And then they added in The Rock, and it's like, all right, like this is the Star Wars for this generation.
Well, I mean, that essentially with that fifth one, that's when they were like, you know what, we can't keep doing street racing. Let's kind of turn it into a crime, Oceans type Italian Job style.
Oh, it's 100% Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
the fifth, like they don't even pretend. Like at some point they're just like, what kind of heist guys do we need? We need a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, and 2 guys who drives cars.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's why it's the perfect cross between the Italian Job and that it's where it starts to get, like, if you didn't think they were ludicrous before, where it starts to get really ludicrous, and then that's
what you did there.
Ludicrous. But then 6 and 7, it was a case of right. 5 had that really good end scene with the safe being driven around, this massive safe being driven around the streets. What can we do to up the ante? And so it was then, right, we need a bigger set piece. Which brings us to F8 with some of the most ludicrous set pieces of the franchise, in my opinion.
Craig, did you see this movie?
I've seen all of them except this movie.
Oh, you need to see. I know you and I know Nick and I disagree on this. I actually think it's the best one since Fast 5. I feel like the only bigger set piece that they did was the submarine, which, to be fair, is a giant. It's a giant set piece or whatever you want to call it. But I think for the most part, they actually didn't try to go over the top as much.
I take your submarine set piece and I present to you exhibits A and B, the beginning street race in Cuba, where he spends a mile with his car completely on fire.
I give you Cuba, and for the record, that's the worst part of the movie for me, because the entire time I'm like, this has nothing to do with the rest of the movie, does it?
Yeah, it was like, here, let's make this film 20 minutes longer than it needs to be by putting this in.
And by the way, I guess I understand how, I don't really understand why all of a sudden my country is like celebrating Cuba, but there's a brief moment in that scene where, like, when they're racing, where they're just like, hey, here's a giant mural of Che Guevara. What? Like, why is that there? Yes, I get why it's there, but I don't know.
CGI'd in as well, I imagine. No, but the other one was the raining cars.
I will give you that. Also,
when it's raining cars.
The part about that scene is the whole time I'm watching it, I was sitting there with my best friend, and I was like, weren't they Italian in the first movie? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, they're Cuban now?
You know what? I think you're right, actually.
And somebody was like, well, maybe he was half Italian and half Cuban. I was like,
it's a stretch. But no, okay, so what about the raining cars?
Wait, well, what about the what?
The raining cars, when they play around with all the cars, they've got computers in them.
Yeah. I guess I just... Maybe you're right. I don't know. I thought
it was impressive.
You know what?
But...
You know what? Maybe I'll change my statement. Maybe it's not so much that it didn't go as over the top. Maybe just this movie didn't feel as uneven as the last two.
That I would agree with. The thing that I had the main issues with, I mean, so I kind of joke about it. I mean, I enjoyed those bits. I do think, well, I don't know about American cars so much, but I know that British cars do not have all the computers that American cars seem to have.
No, you're 100% right. No, there's not that many cars with the auto drive, and especially in New York City, which is infamously a city that's hard to own a car in.
Not all those cabs definitely have that technology in. But no, do you know what my biggest bugbear with the film was the fact
Paul Walker's not in it?
No. He was missed, but not as much as you'd expect to be. But was what Dom was turned to the dark side for? Because I was trying to do the maths, and there was no way that the
because of the timeline.
Yeah, there was no way that what he was, and I don't want to say too much because Craig hasn't seen it yet. But
I don't mind. Fire away.
Well, you find out quite in the film. So Dom has a son you didn't know about, and the age of the child is, in my opinion, is too young to make sense that happened in Fast 6.
Yeah, I guess you could argue. Well, I don't know if it's totally unfair. You could argue she got pregnant like the last night they had sex, and then 6 and 7 are kind of back to back. Like 5 takes place a little distant from 6, but I think 6 and 7 are back to back. So I hear what you're saying. And I've heard people argue that, and I don't disagree with it, but that doesn't bother me nearly as much as the fact that Jason Statham murdered Han, and they just forget about it completely in the movie.
10 minutes after him and Erock meet up, they're best buddies.
Oh yeah.
Saying that, I would say that Statham. I mean, I've always had a soft spot for Jason Statham, not in that way, but I just think he's a cracking actor.
I jerk off.
I think he's a cracking actor, and he was probably one of the only decent bits in that film Spy that came out a few years ago. But I thought he was brilliant in this film, and I think maybe the reason that they did what they did with him was because they realised they'd made a mistake in making him the villain.
No, I mean, I don't think that they think that far ahead with these movies. Like one of the weirdest parts of the movie to me is like how they keep adding to this everything's connected, like since they've been tracking through these movies. Like, hey, remember that character from the second movie? Well, in the fourth one, turns out that he was working for this person.
Yeah.
Remember that in the fourth movie? That's working for the one in the sixth movie. And they're all working for this person and this person. And it's just like, man, there's a lot of coincidences in this franchise.
Well, the weirdest thing I think in the whole franchise is the fact that Han dies in Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, but that was before they knew they were going to do.
Yeah. But what I mean is that so if you want to watch the films in the correct order, you go 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 3, 7, 8. That's the correct order to watch those films in. And what was so jarring in Fast and Furious 7 for me is when they have the main character from Tokyo Drift. I can't remember the guy's name now, but.
You don't need to.
I just remember him as Caleb from American Gothic when he was a little boy. But that actor was the main character in Tokyo Drift, and obviously there's been about 10 years that have passed, and he's aged 10 years in between that Tokyo Drift and Fast and Furious 7, and it's very obvious he's aged as well. So
yeah, but that doesn't matter to anyone because he's got such a weird accent that
is very true.
Paying attention. I had a conversation with some of my friends the other day about him because the first time, like, I'm from New Orleans, like I've lived in the South my whole life, and when I first heard that guy's accent, I was like, they couldn't find someone, like they couldn't find an actual Southerner to play this role. He is a real Southerner. That's his actual accent and his actual. It just sounds super fake, and I wonder if that's not why he wasn't asked to like replace Paul Walker in these movies. You know, because if you notice, they do replace Paul Walker in Fast 8 with Clint Eastwood's son or grandson, whatever it is.
Yeah, I suppose that could be where they're going with it. Yeah,
but that's who he's supposed to be. I mean, he's not like brothers with Dom or anything like that, but it's pretty obvious that like, oh, he's part of the team now, that's probably the biggest part of the movie that doesn't work for me. I was just sitting there like,
yeah,
like he was okay, but no,
he was much better as Kurt Russell's sidekick.
Does this tie it all up at the end, or is this part of a trilogy of 8, 9, and 10?
8, 9, and 10 is a trilogy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's good. I'm going to watch it again. But yeah, to me, I was worried a little bit. Had it jumped the shark? Helen Mirren's accent is fucking terrible, considering that she's from where I'm from. Her Cockney accent makes Dick Van Dyke seem realistic.
Yeah, it is kind of distracting.
Very weird.
But you know, you got Helen Mirren in it. You can't really complain about that on some level.
No, absolutely not. I still would.
Although she did Red, didn't she?
I like the first one.
Yeah, the second one was something else, but
I still haven't watched it. That Red 2 is the same for Zoolander 2. I know it exists, but I'm too scared to watch them for how they'll make me feel about the original films.
You know what? Red 2 isn't well done, but it is kind of amusing in its way, because like everybody in the like this has become Bruce Willis's like hallmark. He does movies where everyone in it is actually trying and happy to be there, and he just shows up and is like, yeah, yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm on vacation, whatever.
He's a drizzle in shits. Bruce Willis is a drizzle in shits.
Yeah, it's Red 2 isn't a good movie, but it's actually fairly amusing.
You didn't mention Zoolander 2 in that statement.
I did not see I enjoy Zoolander, but there's some movies where they're like, hey, let's do a sequel, and I'm like, hey, let's not. Why? What?
Yeah, I think that's the problem though, because I was always looking forward to Anchorman 2, and then they made it, and then I wish they hadn't. It's not very good. It's okay. It's probably one of the better comedy sequels they've done, but it still wasn't very good.
I've still never seen that movie.
What, Anchorman or Anchorman 2?
I've seen Anchorman.
Yeah. Anchorman 2 is okay, but I think they played it too safe.
Anchorman 2 is one of those sequels that's very much feels like, hey, let's just do the same gags and we'll just put like a little bit of twist on it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, in this, in the first one, it's like, oh, isn't it crazy? There's a woman anchor. Now it's like, hey, she's black. Isn't it crazy? There's a black anchor. And it's like, it's the same joke. Like, it's like, all right. They even do another like bigger version of the news crew Fight Club or whatever you want to call it.
It's ridiculous. I mean, the cameos in that film are ridiculous. And there are some good cameos in that film, but yeah, again, it was like, right, that worked really well. Let's make it 10 times better, and then they failed. They got 10 times the amount of famous people to do it, but it wasn't anywhere near as fun the second time around.
No,
but yeah, it was far too safe. And that's why it didn't really resonate with me. I'd still say, Craig, give it a watch, but just make sure your expectations are lower. My friend saw it. He went to the premiere of it, and he said it's better than the first one, and he loved Anchorman. But I think over time he realised that he was brought into the hype of being at the premiere and everything like that, and it actually wasn't.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like they bring out Step Brothers 2. It's just going to be Step Brothers 1, isn't it?
Though, I even though I've said what I've said, I still would like to see Step Brothers 2. I love Step Brothers so much. That's a film that if it comes on the TV, I have to continue watching it. I won't change the channel. Even if it's halfway through, I'll just follow it through. I love it. It's so funny.
We put that on in a family holiday in Scotland when it was on DVD for the first time. We'd sit there with my mother-in-law and father-in-law, who were both in their mid to late 60s, while he's wiping his bollocks all over the drum kit. Oh, it was majestic. One way to get the nana and granddad to go to bed early.
See, with my mother-in-law, she'd have found that hilarious, so she would have stayed up watching it. So it's funny how it affects people like that. But, yeah.
Well, getting back to Fast and the Furious, I mean, I fell in love with the franchise listening to the What Say You podcast.
Ah, yeah. Of course you did.
And from episode 48... up until episode 55, they actually analyse every Fast and the Furious film up until Fast 7.
It's almost like a weird commentary, isn't it?
Yeah, so
it's
they
not
do
a proper
this
commentary, but
they watch a section of the film and then they talk about it. Then they watch a section of the film and they talk about it. They analyse it, and the genius, it's pure comedy genius, because in these films, they're smashing up cities. They're causing tens of millions of dollars worth of damage.
Oh, they're killing tens of millions of people.
Yeah. It's like Superman. They destroy Metropolis, and then at the end they're just laughing on the beach, drinking a pina colada for the family.
maybe so, but at least Fast 5 didn't have literally the most tone-deaf moment I've ever seen on any film, which Man of Steel had.
That is true.
Yeah. The kiss at the Holocaust is maybe the most misjudged cinematic moment I've ever seen.
I love that movie.
Oh God, I couldn't even sit through it. It's the reason I've not seen Batman vs Superman. Well,
Batman and Superman is in my top 20 movies of all time.
Craig, you need to see more than 20 movies. Fuck's sake, man. Jesus.
I enjoy Man of Steel as an entertaining schlocky movie. Although, to be fair, I've never wanted to see it after the first time, because there's some movies where I'm just like, I'm good. But Batman vs Superman, it took me probably a year and a half to finally agree to watch it, and I made it an hour in, and I was struck by how bored I was. Like, that is a very poorly made movie. Like, it's super boring.
That's why you should have called it Super Boring versus Batman. To me, I mean, I didn't really want to go and see it, and then when I heard about the whole, wait, your mother's Martha? That was like, yeah, okay, I'm done with that film.
Oh, I'm a notorious hater of this movie, because I literally predicted everything about that movie except for one thing that I only got half right. I originally said that the movie wasn't going to come out, and I said, if it does, it's not going to come out for a year after they said it was going to come out, because they basically announced the movie before they had any concept of what it would be about. And they were saying, like, oh, we've been working on this for like over a year, and I said, no, you haven't. That's bullshit. Like,
well, technically,
I won't get involved.
Technically, they've been working it a lot longer than that, because I think everyone remembers in another film that I hate, the Batman versus Superman poster in I Am Legend.
I never saw that. I saw bits of that. I didn't really.
It's absolutely terrible. Craig's now going to tell me how much he loves I Am Legend.
I love the book it's based on. I love
the
first film. I love the Omega Man. No, I love the 1960s version. I love Omega Man, and I Am Legend is shit.
It's just another. It's got shitty effects. Will Smith is not a great actor.
Will Smith is a great actor. He's one of the greatest actors of our generation.
Oh, shut up, Craig.
But you can't polish a turd.
But, Craig, like, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was, like, almost 30 years ago. Yeah. That doesn't mean you're a great actor all that time. That's like me saying Johnny Depp is the greatest actor of our generation.
He did more than just Fresh Prince.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah. But what I mean is that when did Will Smith get shit? Because I would argue it was probably around about early 2000s.
I'm not really sure. You know, I mean, at some point his movies just stopped making money.
I still give him big budgets, but
Men in Black, all three of them are brilliant films.
Not. The first one's all right. The first one's good. The second one is pretty poor. Third one is so-so.
It's genius. The third one is genius.
No, the best thing in the third one's Josh Brolin.
Oh, I sobbed at the end of the third one. Yeah. Sobbed.
I sobbed at Les Miserables. Doesn't mean it's the best film of all time.
The Wild Wild West is where it started to go up big time.
Oh my god, that is the first. You know what? That was the second film I ever went to the cinema. No, I wish I had. It would have been more fun. It's the second film I wanted to walk. I've never walked out of the cinema, but I've wanted to twice. That was the second film. The first film was Batman and Robin.
That was that was the one movie that I almost walked out of as well.
And the thing is, I really liked Batman Forever. I've not seen it in a long time, and although I liked Batman and Batman Returns, I still quite liked Batman Forever, but Batman and Robin was just too much.
I almost walked out of Batman and Robin just because I was pissed because they promised us that Alicia Silverstone's nipples would be visible in the armor, and that was bullshit.
Just George Clooney's. I also almost walked out of Congo, but I was laughing too much at Congo.
I walked out of Jan Mulby's testimonial, but that's because Liverpool were 2-0 down against Ajax.
Such a long reference. So, all right, on this, we've talked about this kind of things, but Craig, is there a film that you really hate, but you find people love quite a lot?
Gone with the Wind. Grease.
So your three examples are Guardians, Gone with the Wind, and Grease, all of which start with a G.
There's a very limited library of films up in Liverpool.
I love Guardians, don't get me wrong. I love Guardians, so that's not even in that book. Grease, Gone with the Wind. Don't fucking start me on them two films. The Wizard of Oz, loads of shit.
Hang on. So what you're saying is, so you don't like Grease, you don't like The Wizard of Oz?
No. I like the new one.
And you don't like Gone with the Wind? Well, Gone with the Wind I can understand because it's about 6 hours long.
Still the most ticket sales of any movie of all time.
For inflation, yeah.
And it's shit.
Yeah, but then...
Go figure.
But then...
There was only one movie in the theater that year, so...
But the thing is, though, like...
Leave that out of there. That's not that impressive. There was no TV sets, and there was only one movie in the theaters.
That's what I mean. Like, I hate that statistic. But, you know, for me, like, I don't... Citizen Kane was so overrated.
Well, the problem is, like, when you start getting into movies like that, is that, like, from a modern context, it's not that impressive. You know, it's... what we see and what we view as amazing films, Star Wars, for example, like wasn't created in a vacuum. It was based on old like serials, and it was actually based on like a French comic book in some degree or another.
Oh, and the Seven Samurai and.
I think there's a couple things, but there's one French comic book that like it took from pretty blatantly, but the point is like, you know, all like art doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like it's inspired by one thing and then another thing and all that, you know. And so when you look at like Gone with the Wind and all that from a modern context, it's like it's not that impressive, but nothing like that had existed prior to it, you know. And the same thing with Citizen Kane. Like I don't really have any interest in watching Citizen Kane, but if I lived during the time period when that movie came out, you know, that would be another thing entirely.
But people still, to this day, will turn around and say that it's probably the greatest film of all time. And that's people that are going to be watching that out of that context. That's people who didn't watch it in 1946 or whenever it came out.
Okay, but some of those people are probably serious, but a large number of them are just pretentious assholes.
Yeah, I think you're right.
People will pretend to like a lot of things that they really don't care about. It's like I was talking the other day on the Metal Hand of God about when Prince and David Bowie died, they had so many people that were like, "Oh, me and my girlfriends all night long, we were just listening to Prince albums and just crying and screaming out loud all the lyrics." And it's like, shut up. No, you weren't. Yeah. You're lying. You were just saying that because everyone on social media was talking about how much Prince meant to them, even though they haven't listened to a Prince album in a good 20 years, except for occasional like radio. They'll play Little Red Corvette or Purple Rain.
Correct.
See, I know exactly what you mean. I take some, I've got to kind of pick up on that a little bit because, I literally come downstairs and was almost crying when I found out Bowie had died because I got it first thing in the morning because that was someone that both me and my wife we listened to quite a lot. And it was we always was like, oh, I'd love him to go back on tour so we could go and see him. And with Prince, it was someone we actually had gone and seen on tour. And we listened to him quite a lot, and it was music that, funny enough, both Bowie and Prince were more, obviously, commercial songs, but we used to have a playlist in the car for the kids of music from all different genres. But they were, artists that we both kind of got them to listen to. But you're right, I think the problem with social media nowadays is that because everyone wants to be so public, if something like that happens, you have to be seen to be in the same state of emotion as everybody else. And then it's a bit like a domino effect.
I first saw this phenomenon in 2003 when Johnny Cash died. And I'm a huge country music fan. And don't get me wrong, I love Johnny Cash. But I would never pretend for a second I know Johnny Cash's entire catalog. He's not my favorite country artist. B, he's actually not even like the most important country artist of all time. Willie Nelson is way ahead of him in terms of importance. But, like when he died, they had just come out with that movie, Walk the Line, which I enjoy. But all of a sudden, people who don't listen to country music were like, well, I don't listen to country music, but, Johnny Cash, of course I listen to Johnny Cash. No, you don't. Johnny Cash is way less palatable to non-country music listeners than half of the stuff that's actually out there now. You can't say that, you listen to, y'all won't know who this is, but you can't say you won't listen to Luke Bryan, but you listen to Johnny Cash. Like,
yeah, I know Luke Bryan, yeah.
You hang out with him? He's on the train?
No, when we went to Florida in 2009, the hire car had a country and western radio station just in the when you turn the car on, 97 points something or other, and it was all obviously country and western. We come back, fell in love with it. Luke Bryan he's a boss dude. Yeah, love him.
All right. He's pretty good. But my point is like that's way more palatable than a country artist primarily from the 60s and 70s who has a more country and western like sound design. So, but people all over were like, yeah, I just cried all night because Johnny Cash died. I'm like, no, you didn't. You lie. You lie. Yeah. You don't listen to Johnny Cash. You're lying.
My first Johnny Cash song was the climax to the Terminator TV series, Series 1, where the Terminator is going through the motel, just blapping all the FBI agents, and all dead bodies are flying everywhere. And
the man comes around?
The man comes around. And
they play that in a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows lately.
Yeah. Well, that TV series got caped about 10, 12 years ago now, maybe.
I don't think it's been that long. I think it was maybe it has been. Maybe it's like 05 or 06. Oh.
Yeah, it probably was actually, yeah.
No, wait. It was a few years after Firefly because River Song was in it.
Yeah.
It might have been like 08 or 09.
Yeah, so that was my first Johnny Cash, and all the American story, whatever they're called, the American
Songbooks, isn't it? Yeah.
Songbooks, yeah. They're phenomenal albums, but I couldn't tell you. All the early stuff, I'm not interested in. I love all the melancholy stuff where he was nearly dead anyway.
Oh, I mean, I remember not long before he died, it was the album where he released Hurt. And my friend...
Same album.
Yeah.
I think that was 5.
Okay. I know...
have y'all ever heard his cover of Soundgarden's Rusty Cage? That's one of the American Songbook ones.
No, I've not really listened to those, actually. But
you should Google it. He did a cover of Rusty Cage by Soundgarden, and it's awesome.
Well,
really...
Because I'm not all that familiar. Although saying that, I wasn't familiar with the original Dis either. But my friend showed me the video to Hurt, and I remember getting quite emotional to that. And I think that was before he died. But just because of how he sings it and the visual of a man that you know hasn't got a lot of years left. I mean, no one knew how many years he had left in him, but he just looked like someone who was breaking down. And that song was so emotional.
That's one of those songs where I can't remember if Trent Reznor came out and said it or not, but that's one of those songs where even though it's a cover, they kind of have to give it to the person who covered it, just because, you know, I mean, they're the original and the cover are miles apart in terms of style and all that, but you know, the Johnny Cash version actually does feel like it's about something.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I think same, like he did Personal Jesus as well, didn't he? Like the Depeche Mode song. And again, they sound nothing alike. But his version feels more emotive because of how it's being sung. And my only other Johnny Cash memory like that, really, I mean, other than things like Ring of Fire and stuff like that, is Ain't No Grave, when The Undertaker came out at WrestleMania. That was quite phenomenal.
I kind of remember that.
Phenomenal. That's not one of Johnny Cash's, of course. But no,
it should have been.
But no, it is a weird phenomenon. I think, as I said, like for me, like Johnny Cash didn't really mean that much, but Prince and Bowie both had quite an impact. I mean, last year was a shitter for people that I actually had some kind of concern with.
Well,
but you know what? Didn't last year just become boring?
What, with people dying?
Yeah. All these multi-millionaires who have peasants to cut up their poached grilled chicken and fucking serve it to them on their silver platters, who wouldn't piss on us if we were on fire and all dying, and we're all taken to social media mourning their loss. The list was endless last year. I couldn't give a fuck. I'm not interested. All these...
I think it comes down to, you know, for all our connectivity of social media, it all comes down to the fact that we all want to be a part of something. And that's actually why the Johnny Cash thing offends me, because when you listen to country music and you love these artists, and you mentioned that you love Bowie, I'm sure it's a similar thing where you feel like you're a part of something when you're listening to someone who has something to sing other than, you know, look, nothing against rap music or pop music or metal, but it's very rare that you listen to something from those genres where you feel like it's about something, you know? And when you're listening to an artist that you feel like is speaking to you and that person dies, like, and somebody else is like trying to co-opt it, like it's really annoying, you know? And like when the last one that died last year was Carrie, I think she was the last major person to die, Carrie Fisher. I wrote something about it, or I said something about it, and it came down to this. Like, I'm actually more sorry that I didn't get to know more about Carrie Fisher than I am sorry that she's dead, because she seems like a far more interesting person once more came out about her. But I would be lying if I pretended like I feel a personal connection to Carrie Fisher. I feel a personal connection to Princess Leia. You know, but everyone was acting like it was the end of the world, and it's like, no, like it's sad, you know. It is someone who was important, like it was probably one of your first crushes, you know, or if you're a girl, like an inspiration on some level, like the first badass princess. But, you know, like there is a lot of like people wanting to feel like they're connected to something and faking it to at least give that impression.
No, you're right, and I think there was certainly people that died last year where I felt they had that kind of impact to me for various reasons. Like, borrowing music's a very big one, because for a lot of people, music can have so many connections to it. Prince was a concert that I went to with my wife, like not that long after we'd kind of got engaged, so we had that kind of memory about it. We listened to music quite regularly. You can associate with things. With some of like the actors that have died, Carrie Fisher had that iconic role, but then I suppose there are people that have grown up with Alan Rickman because of Harry Potter, for example. And Robin Williams was one.
Let's not forget Die Hard.
Never forget Hans Gruber. Robin Williams was one that affected me, actually.
Or Dogma.
Oh, especially not Dogma. He was fantastic in Dogma. But
the thing that does me in, right, is I've stopped listening to Kevin Smith podcasts now. Because last year, when the next person died, Kevin Smith grew up with this person and he loved this person and this person affected his life, and I actually got to work with this person and I never got to get them on my podcast, and I'm so upset. And he'd sit there while Scott Mosier would sit there fucking bored out of his fucking tree while he's sitting there whinging. I thought, I can't handle this anymore. Literally every single person that died last year had an emotional connection to Kevin Smith.
So it's quite funny, because I remember when he did that, going back to Alan Rickman, I remember when he did that on Hollywood Babylon, and he told some stories about him with Alan Rickman, and I thought it was quite touching. But I can imagine hearing one story about one celebrity is one thing, hearing it about every celebrity that died is something else. So I can completely understand where you're coming from with that, Craig. But no, the only other actor like that I could think of that had any kind of emotive effect like that was Robin Williams, just because there were so many films that I grew up with as a kid. I was at the age when, Hook was about the age I was, kind of relating to film. Mrs. Doubtfire, they were all films when I was in my early teens that I'd watched multiple times and seemed to always be there. But yeah,
we were on the Great Movie Ride a short while after he died, and you know that montage at the end where he shouts "Good morning, Vietnam"? He got a standing ovation.
Yeah, I think that's quite odd.
I hate when people do that.
Oh, it was ridiculous, because 90% of the people in that montage are dead.
Yeah. So what made him stand out? Even if he just died, yeah.
Just because he was the fresh one.
If he had killed himself 20 years earlier, I probably would have been more affected by it. And I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm just...
No. I know why you're saying that.
I've been watching Robin Williams since I was probably, 7 or 8 years old. And
since he was more? Since he was more?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I still remember bits of his HBO special that was kind of his like rising star thing, and Good Morning Vietnam is like one of my favorite movies from my childhood. But like watching him in the last few years of his life, and probably the last decade of his life, it was like watching a man desperately clinging to something.
Oh,
like
completely.
Because his act, he's and to be fair, he's from an older school of stand-up where older stand-ups never used to change their act. Like, you would perfect your act and you would do it, and his was always a little bit amorphous anyway, but it was basically the same jokes over and over again. And and you would watch him go on the American far inferior version of Whose Line Is It Anyway? And he would, be doing the same thing, and they'd be like, "Oh, look, Robin Williams is doing the thing," and it's like, no, that's really sad, actually. Like, just go be the great actor that you are, and stop being the formerly great comedian that you became. And so by the time he died, I mean, I felt like it was sad, but it definitely didn't affect me as much as it would have if he had died when, I still found his act brilliant.
Or even his films to be brilliant. Because, I mean, the thing is, like, his film choices in the last 5-10 years and all the things he was doing were quite poor. I mean, he had that terrible series with Sarah Michelle Gellar, quite a few low-budget films, actually, where he just wasn't getting the main work anymore. And I think the last...
That's right. That Sarah Michelle Gellar show, that was, like, a few months before he died, I think.
That's right, yeah. It wasn't long.
I think it canceled, and then, like, a couple of months later, he just, ended it. That's even sadder.
And I think the last big film I saw him in was that one, if you call it big, was that crappy one with John Travolta where I can't even remember what it was. I know it was called Old Dogs, but I can't even remember what the actual film was about, but I just know it wasn't very funny.
He found out that he had gotten some girl pregnant, and he was trying to balance his life as a bachelor and businessman with having, I think, 2 kids.
Oh, with hilarious consequences. All of those films do have hilarious consequences.
Well, the hilarious consequence was that he killed himself.
Well, the thing is, though, like I remember the uproar that people were doing about a year or so ago because they were daring to remake Jumanji. And how dare they? Now, I loved that film as a kid, but if you've actually caught Jumanji recently, it aged terribly.
And so did Kristen Stewart.
She had a fleeting moment. Although I've got to be honest, from what I've heard about the new Jumanji film, I'm actually quite excited for it.
They were looking at Mrs. Doubtfire too, weren't they?
Oh, for like years.
Before he topped himself.
Yeah, but this supposedly was pretty close to getting made when he killed himself. But
yeah.
No, I'm with you on Jumanji too. I mean, it's got The Rock, and it's got, to me, one of the sexiest women on the planet, Karen Gillan. I'm all about it.
Not quite as sexy in Guardians, but do you actually know what Jumanji 2's about?
No, I don't give a shit.
Boogaloo.
Yeah, it's called Jumanji 2 Electric Boogaloo. No, so Jumanji...
I wish it was.
Jumanji 2, so this is why people have now kind of settled down a bit now. It's a video game. So Jumanji, it's a video game based on Jumanji. So...
Or an app.
The Rock... So, like, The Rock and Jack Black and all that, they are the characters in the video game that the kids that play the video game become. So I'm assuming that means that The Rock and Jack Black will be acting as trapped in the wrong body type of thing.
That sounds watchable.
That's what I mean. Like, the actual concept of it sounds a hell of a lot better than what people thought it was. So everyone's now quite excited now. There was some footage shown of it, and apparently people are getting quite excited for it now. But I think the concept sounds pretty good.
I mean, frankly, it couldn't be any worse than fucking Tooth Fairy or Doom.
I love Tooth Fairy.
Oh, for sakes.
Although, but saying that, in crappy films The Rock's bidding, I do have a soft spot for the game plan.
The Rock hasn't made a bad film.
He has, Doom and the Tooth Fairy.
I actually like the game plan quite a bit myself.
Yeah, I've got a soft spot for that. But, Tooth Fairy, that to me is about on the same level as The Pacifier with Vin Diesel.
Oh, that movie is a work of art. It's so terrible.
So, just to wrap up, one final question to everyone. I'm going to put it back to something you mentioned earlier, Adam, about DreamWorks films. What is your favourite Who reference in a film?
Did you say who or poo?
Poo. Shit.
Oh, okay. I was like, are we talking about the band? Or are we talking about Doctor Who? I don't know.
We're talking about Whoville.
It's a Cockney fucking accent.
Well, we could go back to Dogma. I guess that's my favorite.
The shit monster.
Man, I need to go and watch that film again. I had my Buddy Christ statue, but I haven't seen that film in a long time. What about you?
No, It's a tough one, putting me on the spot. I mean, I do love pooing myself.
You do.
I literally I fucking laid King Kong's finger out in Barcelona the other week after 14 hours on the beer. I fucking shit me fucking lower intestine out. So I do love pooing.
That's a second King Kong poo reference I've heard recently. What with Adam sticking a Kong Dong up his arse at Universal.
Man, they will not let that thing go.
Neither will you, the way you're walking.
I'm sorry? What?
Neither will you, the way you're walking.
That's one thing about Grim Grinning Host is, like, I'm used to just throwing out dumb things and then having it, like, float away into the ether. And they're, like, certain things, they're like, no, let's keep bringing it up. And I'm like, all right, I guess. Like, now you just make me want to stop talking. But I can tell you what my least favorite poo reference is in a movie.
Go for it.
Go on.
Have y'all seen the movie Bridesmaids?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or she's shitting in the sink.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, when Maya Rudolph shits herself in the street is probably the low point. But I think that is one of the worst, like, movies I've seen in a very long time. And well, maybe not the worst, but it's, you know, probably top 20.
Oh, the Jim Carrey film. That's me classic. That's me classic poo reference.
Oh, Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber. I was crying at that film. There's something about fart noises that just take it away, don't it?
Why?
You know,
Sorry, Adam.
I could listen to a whole podcast about Craig being wistful about shits.
Well, we actually revealed on Dis After Dark tonight, which you won't have heard yet, obviously, because it's not come out, that we're starting Dad Flicks, and one of the premium content that you're going to get for your $10 a month is Craig taking shits around Disney property and filming it.
All right, two things. Number one, leave those poor people alone. They're still getting kicked after they're down. Number two, I would pay for that.
That's why we're doing it. We're not kicking them down. We're just literally stealing the concept they've abandoned. They're not going to use it. We are.
It has to be like an affordable price point, you know, like $9 is a little too much, but $3 or $4 a month, you know.
We're working out numbers.
Okay, right. What was Disflix?
I don't particularly care what it was. I recognize how hard it is to monetize, you know, content in this day and age, and seeing people just try to destroy somebody for that. And I heard somebody was arguing with me saying, like, actually the reason is because they stole the logo, which it actually isn't even a logo. It's just the font, you know, and it's a terrible name and it's a terrible, you know, like they shouldn't have used the Netflix font and all that. But, you know, the guy was saying something to the effect of they were going to ruin it for all the other content providers out there that are associated with Disney and Universal. And I was like, I don't see how that would ruin it for everyone else. But, I
tell you what, my issue. Hang on, right, just before we do. So, my favourite shit reference in the film is in the Hulk Hogan classic No Holds Barred when one of the villains shits himself. Instead of Hulk Hogan, Dookie! I was about 6 and thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen at that point in my life.
Modern day classic.
Now, back to Disflix. So, I think the problem that people had, and where this argument of why it was going to ruin it for other people, it's not because people were trying to put something behind a paywall. That in itself is, you know, people's choice to do so. But what people are kind of getting worried about is that it's very clear in terms and conditions that when you film on Disney property, you do not film for commercial gain. Now, this is, you know, when you have stuff on YouTube and you have adverts, that's a bit of a grey area, because technically you could be making money off that commercially. But if you are actually doing a service where you are going to be live streaming from parks, when you're going to be filming content in the parks, and you're asking people to pay for that content, that is when you cross that line. It's very hard for any, you know, Universal, Disney, or anyone like that to determine who is filming what and for what purpose.
Well, that's reasonable, but there's two things. One, Disney probably would shut them down in that case, which is fair. You know, they're making this venture, and if it happens, it happens. But two, I don't see, like, Disney and Universal aren't going to shut down. Like, they might shut down Adam the Woo from entering their parks, but they're not going to shut down every vlogger out there, every podcaster, because like one vlogger, you know, that might have, like, I don't know, 5 million subscribers doesn't matter that much to them. But if you're shutting down all of them, then all of a sudden that free advertising that you're getting, like, that costs you money, because now you have to put it out yourself and get it out to the masses. It's much easier to just, you know, play ball with these people and let them get their pittances. And I don't, like, I could see them definitely shutting down Disflix, but I can't see them, like, the argument that it's going to ruin it for everyone, that doesn't really hold water.
No, but what I'm saying is that you can't, you know, Disney can't turn around and say, right, I know you work for Disflix, therefore stop filming that content or we'll chuck you out the park. Anybody can be filming anything. And then,
right, but they can put a cease and desist on the actual channel and YouTube would shut them down.
Yes, but that's the thing. It wasn't being done through YouTube, was it? It could be done through their own servers. I mean, that's one argument anyway. I mean, the thing is, I think
in a world where Lou Mongello sells everything from park tours, private tours that he does, where he'll take money and take you around the tour and give you the Lou Mongello tour, to his audio.
Is that where he gives you a hand job in the back room?
It gives you a hand, a little
handy.
Yeah. It gives you an old fashioned.
The whole thing is so grey, isn't it? Because you can go and buy all his audio guides to the lands at Disney, and Disney have allowed him to do that. And there's Jim Hill sells on Bandcamp, you know. Well,
let me explain that a little bit. Because one thing that's been happening in the comic book community ever since Disney bought Marvel is there's this big, like, paranoid bullshit thing going on where you constantly hear, like, every time convention season comes around, you start hearing people going like, oh, they're the rumor is that Disney's going to put notices on every artist's table and let them know they're not allowed to draw Disney characters anymore. They're going to get a cease and desist. And Disney will never do that. It's not worth the amount of money that they're, like, theoretically losing from artists selling sketches for that kind of negative PR. So there's a thing where if you're making below a certain amount of money, for the most part, companies tend to leave you alone. And I realize that there's instances where, like, Disney's went after. There was one where they went after child care services for using their logo. You know, so there are certain instances where they do, for whatever reason, decide, oh, I'm going to go after this person. But for the most part, if you're not making a ton of money, they're going to leave you alone. Now, with something like Disflix, in theory, if it took off, and there's no guaranteeing that it would have, then theoretically, eventually they would have been making, like, a serious amount of money, in which case they're basically stealing from Disney, at least as far as, like, intellectual, like, making use of their intellectual properties for profit. You know, so there's a lot of, like, gray areas in all this.
There's a lot of what ifs, and I mean, the thing is, there's no. One of the potential pitfalls that I could see with the whole concept is, if you're doing stuff live in the parks, is that people that are fans will then want to be involved. The other problem you've got is obviously people that want to cause a bit of chaos if you're trying to do that as well. But there is the potential that by doing things like that in a certain way, that could then cause, various issues in terms of numbers in a certain area, for example.
It probably wouldn't have gotten that far, and
again, this is all potentials. I mean, you're right. I mean, we'll never know now.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is because, like most of the complaints that I saw was about them charging money. It wasn't about the fair use thing and all that, and the use of the logo. But the thing is, like, I tried to explain this to one of the GGH guys, like, they didn't come up with this business model. They sort of half-assed a model that was already out there, which is that YouTube's been cracking down on a lot of content providers that are like the low-hanging fruit. And so there's a lot of content providers out there, especially on YouTube, who are trying to find new ways to monetize. And one of the ways that people do it is a subscription service. So, but the thing is, usually what they do is they still provide a certain amount of content that's free. So that the people that are subscribing to them on YouTube, don't just go away. But what it does is it incentivizes them, like, oh, if you really like my content, I have a ton more. You just have to pay $8, $10, $8, $9 a month, whatever it is, depending on the provider. So from as near as I could tell, what they were doing was just saying, hey, we're just going to ban this altogether, and we're just going to have this private service, which is fine. But as many people said, you can get similar or better content over on YouTube for free. So if you're not giving me at least, a taste of the good stuff, I'm not going to lay down $100 to go, snort lines with you.
Also, as well, I don't think it, obviously, again, I agree the name was bloody terrible, but the fact that they were actually saying in their, the video that they put out, this is Netflix for Disney. Well, it was not Netflix for Disney at all. It was Netflix for people that vlog from Disney parks.
It was actually... It really wasn't either. Like it was like it was like minor Disney focused YouTube is basically what it was. And here's my thing. Like I understand the complaints, and I'm perfectly fine with people like pointing out like, hey, like this doesn't make a lot of sense. But people weren't really doing that. They were attacking because they wanted to jump in and dogpile. And any argument to that, to the otherwise, to me, ends with the fact that, like, I saw people 2 days after they shut down still attacking them, still making fun of them. And I'm like, you got what you wanted. Like, they shut down. Why? Like, were you trying to make a point, or are you just being a dickhead?
There's nothing more vicious than the Disney community, and it was horrific to watch. And there's a lot of people out there who should hold their heads in shame. I mean, we reached out to the Disflix people, but it was in the eye of the storm. We wanted to bring them on the show, not to ridicule them and mock them, just to talk about what the idea was and what the plans were.
And this was when it was still live as well, so this was before it got shit canned. So when we'd reached out, it was still a live venture, so it was definitely not trying to kick somebody while they were down kind of thing. It was, what are you trying to do? Because we'd had some of those people on the shows before, so we knew a few of those people.
But they went after them personally, and some of them people might fucking ultimately top themselves. Do you know what I mean? It was such a constant barrage of personal abuse the verbally raping somebody on Twitter and Facebook one day, and then the next day they're hugging Mickey Mouse and crying. These people are fuck-ups.
And the weird thing as well is that some of the people that were doing this stuff were actual real-life friends of these people. So it's not like keyboard warriors, I don't know you from Adam, sorry. That would kind of lay in there, because that's what you expect, but it was people that they actually considered to be friends. I think the thing is, like, it was done in a completely wrong way. I think the way that it was put out there didn't help. It seemed to put a lot of people's noses out of joint, because it made people that were part of Disflix out to be superior to other people. That's how people saw it, and I could see why. It seemed to be quite a poorly done campaign, really. But at the same time, I think it was just done in the wrong way. Had they gone together, like all these vloggers, and gone, right, we'll set up a Patreon. Lots of people do it, but I mean, when we did it for this, we looked at other podcasts that were doing similar types of things, And some of the big Disney podcasts make serious money through Patreon. You know, we don't, but we didn't expect to. We were looking to really just cover costs for what we did. But some of the bigger Disney podcasts, if you look at their Patreon pages, they are making, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month.
That, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So the money's there to be made.
But that's acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, I posted a road blog about it after it was explained to me, and I don't know any of the Disflix people. I don't have anything for or against them. I do think that their business model was flawed. I do think that the name was terrible, and that they really should have given a lot more thought to how they were approaching things before they launched. But I don't have anything for or against them. The reason that I got a bug up my ass about it is very simple. I know how people are when it comes to stuff like this. Like, I have literal enemies out there. People that I don't know who have attacked me or not just me, but my show, Metal Hand of God. People, if you try to do anything in this world, it doesn't even matter if you're successful. There are people out there who, instead of trying to build their own thing, would rather try and take down anyone who tries to step up and do better for themselves. And look, whether or not these people would have been successful, and whether or not anything that they were doing made sense, I can't hold fault with them for at least trying. If there's a reasonable argument to be made that, hey, you're violating Disney terms, that's fine. Have that conversation. Post a blog explaining in specific, unoffensive terms, why this is problematic, and that's fine, but that's not what people were doing. They were looking to take somebody down, and hey, they were successful. Congratulations, you crushed a bunch of people's desire to do better for themselves. Okay, I take that personally. I don't know a single person that was even involved. I don't even know their names. No,
I mean, Craig will back me up on this. I mean, when we first did Dis After Dark, I don't know if you know the origins. We've said it before, but we were basically failed competition hosts for DisneyBrit, which was still is a popular Disney podcast in the UK, and so people that didn't get together didn't do well on that, didn't get through. A couple of us started a podcast, another couple of people did a podcast as well. And the way that we've always done Dis After Dark is we're just a small dog. There are hundreds of Disney podcasts around the world, and we're just another one. So we've always been very happy to invite other podcasters on from Disney shows. We have provided links for them in our show notes. We've tweeted out when they've got new shows out. We've tried to, come up with a way of kind of helping each other promote ourselves. Now, Craig, you will confirm that the amount that's been given back to what we've promoted over the years has been almost sweet fuck all.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't do it to get it back, but definitely the podcasters who reciprocate, you can count on one hand.
Yeah, and I mean we've had.
And Adam, we do love you.
And I mean the thing is, and people that follow us on Twitter or Facebook will know that we've always, since Grim Grinning Ghost has been a podcast, have always been happy to promote the hell out of you where we can, because we like the show and we like the people involved in it. And, we've been mentioned on the show and we appreciate that. And again, it's not done for that reason, but you as a new podcast doing a similar thing to what we did, we didn't see that as competition or something to be fearful of. That was something to be embraced. And there is not enough of that in these supposed communities. It's not just a Disney thing, it's just in general. People have this fear that if you're doing something similar, well, I don't want to let people know that they're doing something similar because they won't listen to me then.
I actually had on air on Grim Grinning Host, I had this conversation with well, it wasn't just me, but with Lee Malaby.
Yep.
And I was trying to explain to him, I think the major thing, particularly with theme park podcasts, is that I think that most people think what they do sucks, and there's a reason for that because a lot of them do suck. And I think the reason that they don't want to reciprocate and help you out is because, like, oh, if these guys are better than us, then we might lose some of our audience, and we don't want to do that. You know, so in that sense, to them, it is a competition. Like, my view of everything is, if I'm doing good work, if you find me entertaining, then you're going to follow me. And if I'm not, if I stop being entertaining at some point, you're not going to follow. But that's not your fault. That's me. I'm a content provider. It's up to me to provide valuable content that's worth your time. Because even if you're not paying for a podcast and you're not paying into a Patreon, you're still giving up like your valuable time that you could be devoting to something else or listening to a better show. You know, so am I good or am I not? And if I'm good, then I shouldn't be worried about saying, hey, go check out Dis After Dark.
Exactly.
You know? And I also think that when we say podcast community, like on the lower circles, I don't think there is such a thing. No. I think it's a bunch of scavengers largely, and then a few people who are pack animals who are happy to associate with each other. But I don't think there's an actual community.
No. So that said, obviously we've had you on, so either me or Craig are expecting our ask to be a guest on Grim Grinning Host to be any time now.
We definitely want y'all on. The problem is that the time difference. So because we normally record on Mondays, so like the one time that Lee was on, we happened to record at like 11 a.m. Orlando time. But we'll try and figure something out because we definitely want y'all on individually. And as I've mentioned, you know, if y'all ever want to come on Metal Hand of God, we'll figure out a time. And
yeah, I mean, we'll sort something out. I mean, look, me and Craig now, we've done a double header. People don't need to care because they won't consider it a double header, but we've now been podcasting for about 4 hours coming up to across 2 different shows, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning in the UK. So we're not adverse at dodgy times to record stuff. But, no, I mean, when I said that, I was joking. You know, I know that we'd be welcome on at some point, and, you know, that was just me making a comment after going on about how people don't help each other out. But
I know you were joking, but yeah. I'm just pointing out that, like, that's...
Oh, no, but it's definitely a roadblock. And, you know, we've had...
I want to come on and just lick Hunter's vagina. But
you can do that when you go out there in August or whenever you're going out there. But yeah, we've mentioned both your podcasts, but if people want to listen to the content that you put out, if you just want to give a quick plug.
Is there any such thing as a quick plug with me? I have
plug.
Metal Hand of God podcast. If you find yourself offended more than once a month, don't listen. There's Grim Grinning Hosts, which, you know, you guys are nice enough to constantly plug. And then I do if you go to YouTube and Google Metal Hand of God, I've been trying to do more video content there. So, you know, people seem to find it entertaining for whatever reason.
Your car vlogs are starting to take off a bit as well, aren't they?
They're not getting a lot of hits, but the response I've gotten has been pretty good. Like I've had a few people contact me privately.
Are they all just on Facebook up to now?
There's a couple that were just on Facebook, but I've been trying to put them on YouTube as well so that they have some staying power. Because if it's just on Facebook, it's going to go away within a day or two.
Yeah.
You know? And so yeah, I've been trying to do. I have my Fast 8 review. I did for my car the day after I saw it. You know, I appreciate it. And a few others, and I'm actually probably going to post one tonight. That's a little less funny and a little more me just sort of disgusted with humanity. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to get better, and I find for whatever reason, when I'm driving, I'm a little less self-conscious.
Well, and don't forget that you inspired me, because I don't really do a lot of videos or anything like that, and you eating your McGriddle made me visit my local Taco Bell to show you the delicious content we have in our UK Taco Bells.
For the record, although I do find them somewhat enjoyable, I don't eat McGriddles. It's a good idea that maybe it's just too unhealthy. I strictly did those videos as a response to listening, because I think with the McGriddle one, I was driving in my car and listening to your show on the way to work, and y'all said something about disgusting McGriddles, and I was like, oh really? And so I had to eat breakfast anyway, so I stopped and got one.
And of course, you followed it up with your sandwich as well. So
yeah,
you know.
And for the record, I did not eat the wrapper. I checked my stool the next day.
Yeah, that's definitely
in a sieve.
That's definitely a Craig Lucas thing, to eat the wrapper.
I've done that before.
Oh yeah, is that? I don't want to ask if it's a true story. I never want to know. I'm going to assume it's true.
It was a true story. I bought a hot dog in Liverpool city centre, and I'm walking along, chomping down on it, and it just become bad. and I've just nearly finished it all when I looks down and I've eaten half the napkin.
That's not the version of it I heard. The version of it I heard was that you were pissed drunk and found yourself in Tampa Bay watching a baseball game, and that you ate a hot dog in the wrapper.
No, it was in Liverpool, and I was with the kids. The kids were howling.
Why would you? Dude, it was such a beautiful story. It was legendary.
It still is legendary. Those little nonces on Grim Grin and Gaze are going to get bummed to death when I come on their show.
Well, Adam, thank you ever. I don't think there's anything more we can add. Adam, thank you so much for joining us.
You can't end on bumming.
Why can't you end on bumming?
Because
that's sometimes some people's favourite things, isn't it?
I'll bum you.
Nothing wrong with bumming. Said the actor to the bishop. But Adam, thank you very much. Pop After Dark, the most random podcast on the After Dark Podcast Network. I think we've pretty much covered everything tonight. But it's been very enjoyable. So check out Adam's work, his shows and his YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us and putting up for the last just over 2 hours. It's a long show for us. After what I said to you, Adam, about 2 hour shows. And we'll see you in probably about a month's time. Thank you and good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us, Adam. And we love you, Travis.
I'll have you anytime.
You had me a hello.
I hate that fucking movie.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you would like to support Dis After Dark and the other After Dark Network podcasts, please visit our website at www.patreon.com/Dis After Dark. That's patreon.com/Dis After Dark. Thank you.